Welcome to this live video. I welcome all of you. Just a few minutes, in fact, couple of minutes. Let others also join. Then we'll get started. So, by the way, I'll be using this filbert brush in this painting. Mostly the filbert brush. It's a brand new one of size 5. I hope you can see that. Okay. So, we'll get started. So as usual, we'll take in some white, titanium white on this brand new brush and going with some Prussian blue. Very little. Mix that in. Add in a lot of white because we wanna have a very, what do you call, like a very calm sky today. Mix it very well on the palette itself. Not going to load in too much of paint either. Okay. And let's come here at the top. This the handle of the brush is pretty long, so take advantage of that. Let's go ahead and paint in the sky. And by the way, I'm using watercolors today, so should be interesting. In fact, very interesting. Not added water as of now. Maybe we should add in some water, but what that will do is that will hinder the amount of pigment of the paint. So let's go ahead with some white this time. As I told, we need a very calm sky. Yeah, as of now it's pretty decent. Still the blue out of the brush is coming out, which is good. And I'm using a watercolor paper of 300 GSM, that is the thickness. GSM is nothing but it is something to do with the thickness. This will act like clouds. Just gonna scrub it there. See, since this is a new brush, I can afford to do this, but if this was a used one, I wouldn't have taken this risk. Because as you know that some of the paint will still be there. But if I were to use this for blocking in part of a foliage or some tree that is in a distance, then I would be like, I would do it. Okay, filling the sky. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with the sky. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Okay, so now we'll take in some green on that same old brush with which we painted the sky, and some brown. Okay, just to make it look natural. Look at that blue inside the brush will make it look even mistier. Not gonna add any water to this. Okay. And let's come over here. See what mistakes do. The mistakes that beginners make is that they start exactly on the horizon. What I would suggest you to do is, I'll show you. Start above that horizon, something about like that, and wiggle the brush. Okay, just wiggle the brush and that will do wonders. Ups and downs, ups and downs. That is the trick. And I'll make use of that blue color, the white color over there, to make it act like mist. In fact, I can take some blue from this also. Yeah, look at that. That's also known as dry brush blending. Okay, I think we'll have a very big tree over here, so let's not paint there. Okay, and let this be pretty misty here, and this look interesting. Now we'll go ahead and work on this piece of element of this particular painting. Just loading in the paint on the palette. Okay, so now we'll go ahead with some lime yellow and sap green. Load it full of paint and then just a touch of blue so that it ties together. Mostly it will be lime yellow. Load in the brush. Don't need to be too waterish. We'll take some blue also just to make it fit together, and some white and some of that blue. So we'll mix everything together, so and see if it works. Yes, it should work. Yeah, I'll show you how to paint a tree. Definitely I'll show you how to paint a tree. So now what I'm showing you now is nothing but how to paint distant trees. Okay, these are also trees, but they're in the distance. Okay, so pick a spot which is comfortable for you in the beginning. So I've selected this element, assuming that nothing else is there, and let's start off from here. Look at that, just gonna tap it. This is in fact modified filbert brush. So just gonna tap it, and the key takeaway over here is that I'm tapping it very lightly, very lightly. Changing the flavor a bit. Look at that blue color also helps. Just kind of to help it there so that the paper stays stiff so that we can paint it. And also I'm creating some chunks and blocks, as you can see. Let me just zoom it for you. Just give me a thumbs up if that's enough. Okay. I'm just gonna tap it. And you may use pretty much any brush for this because this is far off element. And you may go with just one color to paint this whole element because you don't want to create too much of texture and detailings on this that it makes it too near. And let's come over here too and just sort of listen some more of that. It's fun painting with you guys. Okay. And now we'll go a bit warmer. That is, I'll add in more of lamelo using that same old brush. I think this is the best technique I've found out because it's very quick and very efficient and works very well for far off elements, especially for foliage. And you can use this method to be, to use it to nearby rocks or stuff like that. Okay, something about like that. Just tapping it. So we're done with this part of the painting. So done with this part. Let's move on with the other part of the painting. Okay, so now we will use some brown. So now we'll use some brown, some deep green, and some Prussian blue with which I painted the sky, mixing in some white. Looking for a very dark color. You may add in some black also, but we'll see that later. Okay, so now we'll go ahead with the tree. And let's come over here and just sort of take off the extra bristles from the brush. Look at that. Just kind of cover it up and then go all the way towards the top, leaving some holes in that tree to make it look interesting. Taken some blue and green, sap green. I've also added deep green into this. I also pop out one or two leaves over there so that it gets blended and makes the painting look realistic and natural. And don't want them to be symmetric at all. And I will go ahead and just block this in. Pretty random, just here and there. Not added water, though these are watercolors. Okay, this is just the blocking in part of it. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. And let's think of another element over here. So we'll go ahead and paint in a pathway, just like that. So what I'm going to do is I'll just take in the same color and let's bring in the pathway. We'll let this dry in the meanwhile. Just a pathway, to make it look very interesting. You can even convert this into a river. That's totally up to you. So one of the common mistakes I find people doing a pathway is something like this. Yes, this can be taken up, this approach can be taken, but This won't make it look realistic. Yeah. So what I would recommend you to do is that just take another approach and make it a bit wider, and on the other side too. And we'll go ahead and block in the grass elements of this painting. Look at that, very efficient. So we're gonna make this look very realistic now. Taking some sap green, we sort of place it in right over there. Okay, fair enough. And on the other side, it's gonna get a bit brighter. Look at that. It's gonna get even brighter. Just make the undercoating or the underpainting or the blocking in part, for that matter, a bit brighter. Still using that same brush. So with one brush you can do a lot of things. In the meanwhile, this one's drying. Okay, something about like that. Just a bit over here and there. And blend that with that tree. That will create some shadowy effects. Okay, so now I'll zoom it for you. And bring in this over here into focus. Yeah, that looks good. And let's pick a spot over here too. And maybe let's go over here. Okay, look at that. That's gonna make it look even more realistic. You could even paint in individual leaves also. Do not overdo in the same place if you want to get this effect. Okay. Good, a lot of thick paint, not loose paint but thick paint, so that you get that type of texture even in the foreground. Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Maybe should roll more paint on the palette. Tap the bristles against the surface of the palette, and look at that. Just creating some chunks over here and there with too much of detailings. Do not add water if you want more detailings. Of course, yes, it will take more time, but adding water is okay only for the blocking in part. That is my recommendation. Just go outside that tree, just a bit. There we go. Just a bit over here too. Will make it look very realistic. Okay. And something over here too. Yeah. Just playing around with the colors. Using the filbert brush. Okay, so now we'll go ahead with some mid-tones. Taking in more of green this time. Making them lush green now. Okay. Go back to that lamelo at the top of that tree. Look at that. There we go. So we have another element of a tree. But I need a bit darker over here. So let's go ahead over here and just sort of darken this. It's that simple. Don't have to be symmetric. The outside will be a bit darker than that of the inside ones. Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question. Where did I learn from? Yeah, this type of a technique I self-taught myself. Actually, I learned this by experimenting with different types of brushes, by removing the bristles from them, by taking off the bristles in fact. So I tried on a piece of paper A4 sheet and I got this effect and I thought why not use that effect to paint in foliage. Okay, now we'll go ahead and paint in some grass action over here. For that I've taken in my fan brush. As you can see, don't want it to be too detailed because we have to add detail over here too. You can go a bit brighter over here, that's not an issue. Yeah, looks good. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And just a bit over here and there. And even blend that, make it look like rocks. And over here, let's do something interesting. But before that, we need to apply the another coat on the blocking in part, that is called layering. we're just gonna add in some blue and some green. And let's come over here. Fair enough. Let's sort of place it in right over there. Painting grass. And make sure that you don't lose the shape of your brush that you had initially, because I had that and I had a bad experience with that, because the original shape of the brush will fetch you a lot unless and until you try to manipulate it for your personal use to paint a specific element, then it's fine. But otherwise, I would recommend you not to lose the shape of your brush, the bristles I meant. Okay, something about like that. This is just to darken it up, also ensuring some of those lights are showing up. Okay, something about like that. So now we'll work on this path. Set the brush down. So we'll take a filbert brush to paint that. And I will be taking some yellow ochre. Just some yellow ochre, that should be working pretty good. And some water. So let's go ahead and block this in. Since that greenish cast is coming there, and that's fine, that will help us tie the painting together. Okay, something like that, and I'm gonna take in lots and lots of yellow ochre, but not much of water this time, because see, it may dry fast depending upon the pigment levels of your paint. But when you go back and add highlights like those, look at that, the textures, individual textures there, you won't be able to see that. So that is the reason I'm not adding water too often. But if this were to be a recorded video, yeah, I would definitely do that. Wait for a day and then come back the next day and start the painting. Start with the detailings, adding the textures and all of that. Okay, so we've locked in. So we'll go back to the grass and work a bit on that. This is a pretty straightforward painting for beginners as well as if you're at any level, because this is not, I'm sharing the personal experience of mine with you. Maybe let's go ahead over here and pattern these just a bit. Just a bit of brightening, not losing the textures. If you overdo in the same place, you may lose out on the textures. Let's continue that all the way up till there. Want it to be pretty ambiguous there. Don't have too much detailings. Maybe something should come over here too. And look, you can do this without having a reference picture. Given the amount of detailings, the number of elements, this type of paintings can be done without a reference picture for practice. That will help you when you have a reference picture actually. Now let's come over here on the other side and let's sort of place it in. Maybe we should go even brighter. Okay, something about like that. Gonna load a lot of paint. Okay, now we'll take in some more thick paint. Look at that. When you take thick paint, look at that difference over here and over here. Yes, that also will give you some textures, but this will give you more. Okay, something about like that. We'll load a lot of thick paint and we'll make the corners a bit darker so that the attention stays in the middle. So we're just trying to even that out. I don't want any exceptions there. Yeah. Now I'll take in some white and some yellow ochre, but then mostly white. And let's start off from here. It almost looks like pink due to some reason. Maybe because of the colors that were previously there on this brush. No, should take in more white. Just some white should do the work. Look at that. Leaving a lot of cracks and a lot of gaps on this path. Okay, something about like that, and just gonna tap it, creating some more textures as we come further down. Okay, something about like that, and we'll make it even smoother when it goes back. Fade it away. So that's going to create some depth into your painting. Now load in heavy amount of thick paint. This is going to get even exciting. Okay, something about like that. Hold the brush pretty loose. Don't want it to be like too stiff. If you hold it too stiff, you will not have too much control on the brush. Blend it off slightly. Okay, fair enough. Now, so the color does matter over here. Given the setting, given the sky, light sky, calm sky, not much of clouds. Beautiful trees, beautiful background mountains. So this will make a huge difference, definitely. Just go ahead once on that to remove off the excess brush strokes. Pretty good to me. Depending on your thoughts in the comment section. And something will do just a bit. Adding some interest into the painting. Pretty decent. Okay, something about like that. Clear those edges. Make sure they're crystal clear and well defined. Okay. Yeah. And now we'll try to mist this. Try to give it some mist as it's completely dry. So I'll wipe off my brush and we'll go ahead and mist it. So I'll take in some white, just some white. Look at that, just gonna place it right over there. Just sort of glazing it almost like an oil paint. Not losing much of the texture. That is the reason I did not create much of texture there. Only at the bottom it looked pretty good. And at the grass level also. Let's go ahead and fill in this. Yeah. Look at that, this is separated from this totally. Now let's think of some rocks here. One or two rocks. But before that, we will go with another coat of highlight on this particular tree. Not much, but just a bit so that the value stays. I think areas in which I think it's less textured. Load the brush full of paint when the background is dry. See something about like that. Makes it look even more interesting. Just absorbing the paint, which is to some extent good because it's gonna dry fast and it will allow me to go with another coat or another layer. Okay, that's pretty much for this little piece of tree. And now we'll go ahead with some more highlights on this piece of grass. Okay. Maybe the lights aren't hitting here too much. Now I'll take another brush, a smaller version, very small, and let's paint in some white flowers. Here's a secret tip. Do not go ahead and paint. Maybe you may paint in one flower like this. A flower, okay, fine. And another one, when you go back, do not paint the same way. Change it. Just one petal, two petals. Yeah, so that's more than enough. This will make your grass look even more interesting and natural and beautiful as well. Maybe we'll go with a different colored flower. In fact, this is a very old brush. Skip some spots. Not much today. Okay, load in the paint. Go with another coat of highlight. I want this to be the brightest of the all. Yeah, something about like that. Loading in a lot of thick paint is a secret. Make it a bit downwards there. That will add some lateral depth into your painting for sure. Skip some spots. As you go higher and higher with the highlights, skip more spots. Okay, something about like that. It's even dense and thick and bright over here. Now I'll clean up the brush. So load in some brown and blue. Brown and Prussian blue will make a gorgeous color, dark color. Let's go ahead and have in a rock. I've added some water to this. Okay, something about like that. This is just a blocking in part. And over here on this piece of path, let's create some interest. As you can see over here, this sort of darkness. You may even use the fan brush. This may look too dark as of now, but as we proceed further gradually, this will make sure everything will fit together. Take off the excess paint. See something about like that. Look at that, that's gonna make it even more realistic. Those midtones, that highlights, the texture, everything fitting together, huh? Look at that, as we go back, it's gonna get lighter. In fact, the paint is getting lesser, so it will automatically get lighter in color and in value. Do not skip directly over there. Make it look gradual, otherwise you'll have dark over here. The same darkness you'll have over there also, so I wouldn't suggest that to happen. And it also helps me to season up my brush. And same with you. Yeah. And now I'll take in some white and yellow ochre. Let's come over here on this rock and sort of place it in. Place in some highlights in the form of textures. Okay, something about like that. for the time being. Now we'll go with some white. Just with some white. With a lot of paint. And come back over here and just sort of place it in. Look at that. Textures play a very important role in this type of painting. Added in some yellow ochre, white, mostly white. Look at that, makes it look interesting and realistic. That's the most important thing. I'm a big fan who wants my painting to be realistic and help others too. Okay. Make them the brightest in the middle so that the attention stays there. But this also depends if you're making use of a reference picture. Change the angle of the brush, and that helps. Go back directly there and drop in some more highlights. Okay, so now we'll go ahead with some more of that same color this time. Don't want it to be too bright. Let's drop it in right over here with that same fan brush, pretty much the same one. Look at that. That crackishness, that rock feeling. Okay, so I think that wraps up this live painting. Thank you so much for joining, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Till then, take care and bye for now.